Allan Advisors, creating aha moments, presents Aha Business Podcasts. We provide opportunities to discover information to help you run your business and guide your decision making. The more you know, the better decisions you make. For more information, log on to allanhirschadvisors.com. I'm your host, Allan Hirsch. Welcome to the podcast. My guest is Steve Picarde Jr., President, Predictive Index, Mid-Atlantic. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Allan. I appreciate you having me.
It's my pleasure. I usually ask this question: what motivates you to get up in the morning and go to work?
This is a really fun business to be in. I mean, it really is. You wouldn't think behavioral assessment programs would be that exciting, but we have a pretty big impact on people's lives day to day, just individually going over their results and helping them to better understand themselves, how they can be better in their jobs and have a bigger impact on their business. But then company-wise, we can help organizations really get where they want to go. And we do it on a daily basis. So it's encouraging. We're excited to get out of bed every morning to help our clients.
Well, first for the listeners of the podcast, I did do this assessment a couple of weeks ago. So we're going to go through my assessment, which I have not gone through with. And then we're going to talk about how businesses use it to help them select, build teams, and so forth. So why don't you start? What did I do, to explain the test and what we did?
Absolutely. So let me just start with I'll describe what you completed. So we have a number of assessments. The primary one, and the one that's been around for 65 years is our Predictive Index Behavioral Assessment. And it identifies core behaviors, drives, motivating needs of an individual. A lot of different applications for a program like this. How do we understand the strengths you bring to the table and put you in a role that allows you to play to your strengths? How can we manage and motivate you once we've hired you for this role? How can we manage and motivate you as effectively as possible? Create an environment where you can succeed. One of our primary goals and objectives is understanding where you want to go as a business. And then how do you align your talent with those goals and objectives? And so what you completed is our behavioral assessment, probably pretty quick and painless. Only took you maybe 6 to 8 minutes to complete, right?
It was very painless. It was I don't know how many words, but a bunch of words that people, how people envision me or expect from me, and what do I expect from myself?
That's right.
And I checked the boxes.
That's exactly right. Fairly non-invasive in that it just presents a number of adjectives, and you just check those adjectives that jump out at you.
But may I ask you, so you've been around for 65 years?
The Predictive Index has. We are. So
I mean, you don't look that old, but
no. Yeah. So I'm Steve Picarde. I'm president of PI Mid-Atlantic. We actually just celebrated our 35th anniversary just a couple of weeks ago. So we've been in this game for a while too, but it was originally developed in Boston, Massachusetts, and the program has kind of grown and spread since then.
So what did I filled it out, submitted it, and I get this three-page report, 4-page report.
So
what's it say?
Yeah, so that's the summary narrative. And I did a little research of my own on your background. And what's interesting is that certainly your background, your experience certainly matches up really nicely with the Predictive Index survey. What you have there in front of you is our narrative report. What we really spend a lot of time on and focus on are actually the graphic results on that first page there.
Well, I have that as well.
Exactly. And those graphic results, what we do is we train our clients to be able to read and use and apply those graphic results. And what they say is, they identify a couple things. Number one, how you're behaviorally hardwired. So if I were to give you a quick overview, just a summary of what this says about you, not surprisingly, it's going to say that if we were to start out with your highest drive, it's the dominance drive. You being highest in dominance says you're a strategic thinker, you're big picture focused, you're a change agent, you're growth minded, you're venturesome and risk tolerant. I might even add in there that it potentially could say you probably wouldn't make the best employee. Because
Well, I've never been, interesting enough, I've been an employee, but it was in a family business. And then I've been running businesses. And then the last 8 years, 9 years, been doing this executive coaching. So,
right. It affords you the opportunity to be in a position where your success depends on you. You can drive your own results, but you also have the freedom and flexibility to, create your own situation, your own lifestyle. What the results also say is that I wouldn't describe you as the most hands-on, detail-oriented individual. In fact, you're more of an individual that looks at operations from a 30,000-foot perspective. You're looking to say, where do we need to go? And let's do anything we need to do to get there. So you'll think outside of the box, you'll get creative, and it's almost what I would describe as you really have a strong end result focus, that end result orientation that just says, let's go make it happen.
right. And it's interesting. That's what I do. I work with businesses, helping them to change to make better business models. Think outside the box.
That's right. And because I'd almost describe you as that's you're one of their strongest value adds will be helping them to see the vision, helping them to see where they can go, and kind of starting with the end in mind to say, this is where you want to go. Now let's work backwards to say, what do you need to do to get there? But at the same time, I'd almost describe you alone. If you were to approach it individually, I'd almost describe you as a better visionary than an implementer of those ideas. And so can you do it? Could you get into the weeds? Absolutely. But you have more fun on, kind of setting the vision and setting the direction.
Absolutely. That's why I coach. I don't set the implementation. I coach, look at the big picture, help them look at the big picture, which is very important. They need to be able to look at their big picture and manage their business, not operate in the business, but run it. And they need to be the people that find the people to help them run it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And you're going to instill the urge. I mean, just adding to your profile, you're going to still instill a sense of urgency in them to go make it happen, just because you have a pretty strong sense of urgency. So you have a proactive drive and a results orientation that says, I want to push and encourage them to do this and do this quicker. One last thing I'd add is, and this is probably especially important from an executive coach standpoint, is I would describe you as having a bit of a problem-solving type of mind, where you like to kind of just understand. You're going to ask a lot of questions. You're going to understand the situation. But at the same time, you're going to tell people the way you feel. You're not going to mince words. You're going to tell it like it is and be straightforward and direct in their approach. So, and that's pretty powerful to, have that coming from an executive coach.
Well, to me, it's, and I'm looking at it from myself, having not done this test before, that part of what I do is I hold them accountable.
Exactly.
And once they make a decision and they want to carry it out, I hold them accountable to make sure it is carried out, that they work on it and they do it.
That's right.
One guy I coached used to work in their business, and when I got him to understand that it's about delegating it, he quadrupled his sales in the next 2 years.
That's exactly it. And I mean, in a lot of ways, you'll see this, and what got you here won't get you there, right? And his success was built on probably him doing most of it himself and leading the charge and being hands-on.
Well, he was a military sergeant before he went into business. So right. That leadership is you get in the field and you lead.
That's exactly right. Lead by example.
And he actually said to me, he had to relearn leadership skills to transform his business.
That's true, because he probably had a little bit of that, if I want something done right, I do it myself mentality. And that'll carry you a long way. But if you really want to get to that next level, which you helped him to do, he's got to realize, hey, these are the strengths I bring to the table, but I can't do it all myself. Right. Let me surround myself with people that can, I can delegate to them, know that they'll do it and do it right, and I can focus on the bigger stuff.
And he did. I mean, he went from, and we charted it. He went literally from the day he recognized that his leadership skills were exactly opposite of what he needed to do. He recognized that, and on that date when we met, for the next 2 years, he literally quadrupled his business.
That's incredible. So I hate to put you on the spot, but what we do is we take a data-driven approach to helping you understand your style, and that CEO to understanding their style. But you did it more intuitively. So what did you pick up from him? What did you see in him that helped you to kind of figure out that's what was holding him back?
I'm supposed to interview you.
I know.
But
Exactly.
very frankly, I saw in him someone that didn't delegate, didn't run his business. He worked in the business.
Yeah.
And he needed to learn to step aside, trust people. And one of his why was actually building trust with people, which he wasn't practicing.
Right.
And he needed to trust people. He brought in someone to do the estimating. He brought in 2 people to run the crews in the construction side, where he would go out and run one of them.
Yep.
And he went into strictly business development. All of a sudden, the business development took off because he's doing what he can to grow the business. He's the only one that can sell, or eventually he's as he's grown now, he's looking to expand by hiring a business development person. But that's the kind of thing that I've taught him. He doesn't do his own bookkeeping anymore.
Right.
I mean, I had someone in Frederick that charged $300 an hour for his time, and he was doing 10 hours a week of bookkeeping.
Yep.
He's paying a fortune for his bookkeeping.
Absolutely. And that's that trust factor too, especially with the books. It's going to be hardest to give that up more than anything, maybe.
Right. So it depends. For me, it depends on what they're doing, what has to change, and how they need to adapt.
Absolutely. And I think, listen, I would almost say you were able to get there. You were able to figure him out and figure out maybe what's holding him back and do it. And the only thing I think we bring to the table is just a more objective, data-driven approach that potentially could have helped you get there a little quicker. So, it also says you have that intuition that says you can kind of figure it out. But this might just give you a little bit more of a data-driven approach.
Well, I figured it out very early on, but it took him a year to adapt to the kinds of change that I was working on him with.
Right.
So it's not necessarily my ability to change.
Right.
It's my ability to get someone else to change. Yeah. The only one that can change is the person you're dealing with. I can't go in and tell this person, do this.
Exactly. Well, you can. It's just a matter of whether they
do it or not.
Follow through.
Right. But I've got to help them see what they need to do and do it themselves. Right. Because that then sticks and stays with them for long term. So the only person that can really change is someone who wants to change, and that individual wanted to change.
Absolutely. And I would just add, it takes someone to, I think that's why we go to, you and I talked earlier about things like Vistage, because having that third-party perspective from somebody that is in similar shoes or was in similar shoes helps you to figure that out and create that.
Well, very frankly, I was a member of Vistage, and I became a coach under Vistage, and then went on my own shortly thereafter. And I use their model. I do group coaching.
Okay.
I bring CEOs, non-competing CEOs together.
Yep.
For 4-hour half-day meetings.
Excellent.
And then I meet with them hour to hour and a half once a month. Right.
And it's, I think that I've experienced the same thing. Been in the groups, and it's I almost describe it as it's like an MBA class for 4 hours every week, because you're actually, not
every month.
theoretical anymore.
Not every
Every
week.
month.
Yeah,
every month. Right. Yeah, but you're right. It's, it's not theoretical. It's, seeing what these businesses are doing and how they're
Well,
changing.
they transformed the business I bought in 2008.
Yep.
From a business that probably would have failed in the next 6 to 9 months.
Sure.
Transformed with some ideas, and I was able to adapt to it and adapt the business to the suggestions from the group. You don't see the forest from the trees. It's the biggest problem.
That's right.
That a lot of CEOs have. We need to take a break here and get a couple commercial sponsors in. And when we come back from the break, I'll continue my conversation with Steve Picarde Jr., President, Predictive Index, Mid-Atlantic. I'm Allan Hirsch of Allan Hirsch Advisors, and this is AHA Business Podcast.
Hi, Rick Dempsey here. As a former Oriole and Series MVP, I know a lot about winning and championship teams. Today, I am happy to tell you about my award-winning web design and internet marketing team, Adventure Web Interactive. For over 2 decades, many of Maryland's most successful firms have chosen Adventure Web as their strategic partner for web design and online marketing. I can tell you from using them personally, their search engine optimization and social media programs have saved their clients tens of thousands over the traditional pay-per-click digital agency. Visit AdventureWebInteractive.com and listen to what clients such as Hercules Fence, TriStar Electric, ABC Rental, Rhine Landscaping, Markdown's Office Furniture, and many more highly successful firms have to say. And don't forget to tell them Rick Dempsey sent you.
Strengthen, protect, and preserve your retirement nest egg. Scott Garceau here for the Stephen J. Sless Group, Baltimore's reverse mortgage specialist. Reverse mortgages have evolved to become a viable retirement tool. Enjoy retirement without monthly mortgage payments, improve cash flow, pay off debt, and stretch retirement savings. Stephen and his team can offer strategies to make housing wealth work for you. If you're 62 or older, learn if a reverse mortgage could help. Visit reversebaltimore.com.
An equal housing opportunity lender. This is not a commitment to lend. Stephen J. Sless, NMLS 298581. PRMI NMLS 3094.
Welcome back to the podcast. My guest is Steve Picarde Jr., President of Predictive Index, Mid-Atlantic. We were talking before the break about, my practice, but how you help people, that only people that can change. It reminded me of Mark Twain's definition of insanity. As a business owner, you only know the certain things you know, and you continue to do them and expect different results. Right. That's Mark Twain's definition of insanity.
Yeah. No, and I think I think the where we really start with our clients is just understanding where they want to go. What's the strategic direction that they want to take? And then, on the other end of that are results, the results that they want to see. The hard part for a lot of organizations is how do we get there? And we really tend to focus on that people component in the middle there that will help them to actually be able to execute on that strategy and see those results. We say strategies don't execute themselves, people do.
Right? Absolutely. People execute strategies. You can have the old saying, you can have the wrong person in the right job and he'll get things accomplished. You can have the right people in the right job and they don't get anything done.
Right.
It depends on getting things done.
It does. And I would say that there's traditionally kind of a viewpoint that programs like this, like the Predictive Index, are primarily hiring tools, or let's hire the right people for the right role. And we've really, I've been doing this 19 years now. Where we spend most of our time is actually in strategy. We spend most of our time in the C-suite or C-1 and focusing on them and to say, all right, what are our goals and objectives? And then how aligned are we as a leadership team to actually be able to deliver on that and execute on those ideas and objectives. And then from there, once we have that in place and understanding that dynamic and who should take on what roles and what responsibilities to be able to deliver on that, then we begin to work down through the organization to do more of the traditional stuff that programs like this do. understanding what roles we're going to need to hire, understanding what our best people look like, how we can hire more of them, but also how do we keep those individuals by managing and motivating more effectively. So let's develop our leaders with helping them to understand themselves a little better and understand how others that they manage are different, and they can use a data-driven approach to manage and motivate them more effectively.
So how do you go about working with management to make sure, you do your strategic analysis, and how does your productive index predict the kind of workers that they want?
So we do a couple different ways. There is in our traditional program, one of the assessments that we have is a job assessment, and managers would complete it on a position that they're hiring for, and it would say, here are what the behavioral and cognitive requirements are of the position.
Okay.
Really good way to benchmark the role. We get managers' input, and what's interesting, Alan, is you wouldn't believe the number of times you have 3 or 4 managers all providing input on the same position, and they come out with wildly different outcomes as to what they think the job is. And then you wonder why.
There's no question about that.
Right.
You
wonder why you have an issue.
You give 2 people the ability to define something, you get 3 different opinions.
That's right, exactly. And so, having that conversation is a pretty powerful one. Why do you think it's this, and why do you think it's that? And gaining agreement as to what the position really requires. So that's one way of benchmarking it. But the fact of the matter is, the best way to benchmark what positions require are looking at the team members that you have in place. Most organizations, they have some individuals in roles that are absolute rock stars, and they say, man, if we could clone those individuals and identify more of them, we'd really be in a position to accelerate our growth. And so that's a lot of what we do, is let's profile everybody. Let's understand, what makes those A players really good, how we can identify more of them in the process. Let's understand those B, maybe even C players, to say, what might be holding them back? Let's take this data to see how can we maybe coach and develop them differently? What can we provide them to potentially increase their likelihood of becoming more of that A player? And it's pretty much it's a simple model. It's let's figure out, what makes people good, what the strengths they are, and let's get them playing to those strengths, because when they do, they're going to be more productive, more engaged, and happier.
Yeah. So how do you go about using this? If you're looking for someone in finance, someone in sales, what are the different kinds of outlines or predictive indexes do you need to see in those kinds of jobs?
So maybe this is best to I'll give you an example using a sales organization that I work with, because I actually think this might be a good analogy. I started working with a large Fortune 500 food service sales organization back in 2005. And at the time they had 1,000 sales reps and they had 50% turnover. What was interesting about this is a model where they needed to go take on the competition. They needed to grow market share. And when we profiled the top performers, they were actually all farming profiles, believe it or not. Farming mentality, not the hunters, not to go out and open new accounts. And when we realized and talked through it, what we realized is when you have 50% turnover in your sales force, those new reps come on, they add a few new accounts, they leave. Well, what do we do with those accounts? Let's give them to our long-standing relationship managing, individuals. And so these individuals that were writing the biggest books of business and were the A players, or perceived as that, had profiles that were way wrong. And we looked at the numbers, and they were writing huge books of business, but they hadn't opened new accounts in the past couple of years.
They're not the hunters.
They're not the hunters. And so we realized that model was flawed and it wasn't going to get them where we wanted to go. And so what we did is we started looking at those reps that were really, able to open new accounts and grow their business in a short amount of time, within 18 months of being with the company. And when we built out that model, guess what it came out as? It came out as that hunter profile. And we started targeting more of those. And when we did that, turnover reduced. Turnover was cut nearly in half. And so it's it's using their data. That's all it is. It's taking their performance data, combining with our people data, and saying, let's go identify more of these in the hiring process. Now, let me just stop there to say that's half the battle, right? Is how do you attract them? The other half is how do you keep them? And
right. Well, that seems to be, particularly in your model, still was a problem because instead of 50%, it was 25% turnover, which seems to be very high.
And they were pretty happy with that, to be honest with you. Turnovers tend to be, a little higher in sales industries like that. We did end up taking another jump, though. We cut the turnover nearly in half again, and that's the other half of it is people don't quit jobs; they quit managers. And I really think the value of a program like this, again, it's perceived that it's a hiring tool. The real value of a program like this is companies use this to develop their managers, to take a more of a data-driven approach, to understand themselves, but also, how do I need to coach and develop this route versus this route? And so for the past 5 years, we've been training their district managers on this program and how to use it internally. And what's happened is for the last 4 years, their turnover has been 16%, 14%, 15%, and 17%. So the shocking thing about all this is, as I mentioned, when I started with them, it was 50% turnover and 1,000 reps. They're now at 2,000 reps and averaging 15% turnover in their sales force year over year.
So you've been able to help them cut their reduction literally of 1,000 down to 5 to 7%.
So they're now 2,000 employees. That sales force is now 2,000 employees, and they're running that 15% turnover rate. So it's effectively less turnover with double the size of the headcount.
Yeah. So, but you did all of this with your productive index and working with the sales team.
So it is. It's a combination. We have a really solid program, but it's really the client that committed to this program. It's the client that said, we believe in this. We believe in our people. We want to invest in our people. And it's that kind of commitment that makes something like this happen. The program's good, but it's only as good as, those that implement it. And so in this case, it's become part of the culture. Our model is we train them to be able to apply the predictive index and use it internally throughout their organization. Through that, there is a commitment that they use it every day. It's become part of the culture, and that's really where the change has happened.
Yeah, well, in doing that, you've helped them by providing them a tool to help them see who they're bringing on, who they have, and their skill level, and you've melded it together to create a solid foundation.
Yeah, that's true. And I'll tell you, here's what we've experienced is most organizations, they tell their managers, hey, we're going to promote you to manager, now go manage people. And they just expect them to be able to do it. And
that's called the Peter principle.
Exactly.
From going back years.
Yep, absolutely.
If you promote someone to a level of their incompetence.
Exactly. With the best intentions, they're promoted right out of a job.
Right.
But and I think that has been more than anything, because they'll say, listen, the only material difference that's been made is the investment we made in our district managers to be more self-aware, to give them maybe more of a data-driven approach that says this is how you should manage and motivate this person versus this person, but also increasing that self-awareness in them.
Yeah.
And that's the difference maker.
Yeah. So where do you think after 35 for you and 65 for the company, where do you think the company's going to be going in the next 5 to 10 years?
So this has always been what I would describe as a crowded space that, there's a lot of really good programs out there. People are really well aware of the DISCs and the Myers-Briggs and the calipers and those types of programs. We're trying to move into that space, I think, where where this is the go-to program. And I really believe we have an opportunity to get there, to kind of be the king of talent optimization.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, you're the oldest.
We're one of the oldest, certainly. I mean, I think Myers-Briggs, within a few years, they're all in that 60+ range category. And the fact of the matter is, if these companies that have been around 50, 60 years, there's a reason they've been around. They have legs, and it's not haphazard, right? I mean, they're legit, and they are, their data is sound. And then so it comes down to what do you do with it? And the difference in a lot of these programs is how the information is distributed. I think our model is, we don't want to just ideally go in and help you just hire the right people, because that, as I mentioned to you, it can help. It will help. Don't get me wrong. You'll get better people in the door. There's no question. But at the same time, it's really not the solution. The solution is more of, let's understand where we want to go. Let's get leadership aligned. Let's get the right people in the door, and let's put a plan together to drive an engaged workforce that's going to help us deliver it. That's where we are trying to go as an organization, and find the clients that want to get on board with that ride.
Okay. So how can listeners of the podcast reach you?
So PIMidlantic.com is the best way to reach out to us, learn a little bit more about the assessment. I would encourage anybody that's listening to do what you did. Take the 6 or reach out to us, submit an inquiry. We want to learn more about the Predictive Index program. Tell us where you heard about it, right? We always like to hear that, and be able to give you the feedback, Allan, that, hey, we've heard from these individuals, and you got a really strong listening base. But go ahead and take the PI survey. And what we'll do is we'll reach out to you. We'll go over your results. Your obligation is the 6 to 8 minutes it takes it, and then however much time you want to spend for us to go over your results and learn a little bit more about your business, and then really relate the results to not only helping you to see your results, but helping you understand how it could be applied to those business challenges as well.
Well, thank you very much for appearing on the podcast. I appreciate it. I think this has been a wonderful information on this Predictive Index, and I hope you do grow and prosper. Thank you for being on the show. I'm Allan Hirsch of Allan Hirsch Advisors, your host. To reach me, you can call 443-977-4500 or visit my website, allanhirschadvisors.com. I'm Allan Hirsch, and this has been AHA Business Podcast.